love to have Cole and Kel come down real quick, and let's do a quick Q&A, because I'm sure you guys have tons of questions. I heard the sniffles when they got to the sad parts, and I heard the woos and the wows when you guys were hearing information that is probably new to you. So I would love to have a dialogue about that, and I'm going to start off if you guys want to come on over and take a seat. Grab a mic. Ow! Of course, hello again. So when we did this Q&A the first time, I think we were scheduled to do like a 10-15 minute Q&A. It ended up being almost 45 minutes. So I know that there are a lot of questions and concerns from consumers who are also pet guardians, which I love that phrase rather than pet owners. So I would love to first, I'll ask the first question, and then we're going to turn it over to you guys, okay? So my question for you guys, even though I know the answer, I want everyone else to know, how did you get to this film? Why this film? Why this documentary?
I'll gladly speak. Go for it. Kel had a dog with an itchy stomach who you saw at the end of the film, Kadri. And you went to the vet 3 times, and it was your groomer who said, look into the food. There might be something in the food. And then you went to Google, which did not help you. Yeah. And then he came to me, and I did help you. And then that's where the birth of it. It was a year of confusion, and then we started filming, not knowing what we were doing, and we learned by filming.
Got it. No, I mean, that's a lot of documentary filmmakers have stories that are kind of like that. So actually, by show of how many pet guardians do we have out there? How many owners of fur babies do we have? Okay, so it's quite a lot of people. So this is probably a film that resonated very deeply with you guys. How many people, by show of hands, also had a little, like a twinge in their gut when they saw some of the brands that were up there, because you probably maybe also feed your pets pet food? So a couple of people, because I remember the first time I watched this, I was like, oh, that's not good. So
one of the big concerns starting this film was the fear of the audience reacting exactly the way I did when the person suggested, oh, you should actually feed grain-free, blah, blah, blah. I naturally dismissed her. It's like, oh yeah, crazy groomer, what the hell does she know? And you don't want to come across as the crazy hippie, new waves, like, oh, well, this is what you need to feed. But as you look into it and you realize it's true, you know most likely people will react the way I did, and in a very dismissal way, it's like, oh, it's fine, he's eating dog food. So it was to find a delicate balance to not put too much information. I mean, we have a micro fraction of what we have come across in the last 5 years in the film, because if you put everything, I mean, first it overwhelmed the audience, and then you don't even know where you are going, because I mean, it's a very disturbing industry.
Sequel.
I'm sorry? Oh, not me. Will I ever do a documentary again? Ask me in 5 years, but now this took 6 years, and yeah, you don't want to do one back to back. Need a little time to rest.
Totally understandable. So yeah, I mean, it's a labor of love, any documentary is, but this one in particular, it hits it gives you all the feels, because our pets are like our babies. They are part of our family. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to the audience and have you guys ask some questions as well. Does anybody have a question? I know you do. Don't be shy.
I'll repeat the question.
Have you guys gotten any pushback since the film has come out? Have you received letters or anybody coming up to you at screenings saying, you know, you guys are really blowing this out of proportion, or don't make me feel bad about what I'm feeding my dog, or anything like that?
No, the only sort of concern we get is how sort of ended it, where it was like, well, what's the answer? You didn't give me a brand to feed, and it's like, it's not about a specific brand, it's about basically approach to health and species appropriate. That's what I'm really trying to enforce in this, but I haven't received any. I feel like most people that watch it reawakens common sense. People sort of know whenever I speak with people verbally. It's like, yeah, I sort of know that. I felt that way, but I haven't really, went into researching. So I haven't received any pushback about this being blown out of proportion unless someone has a specific agenda. Otherwise, if you're just a pet owner, I feel like it makes common sense with people.
From audience member, I don't think there has been any so far.
Any industry people?
Good question.
Not yet.
Pre-releasing the film, originally there was some complication, legal aspect of it, as you can imagine, as we are not always complimenting some of the food, and it's a very big industry. So it, obviously created some challenges, but no, from audience members, so far it's been shockingly well received.
And I think in the research, just to add to that, in the research, if you take enough time objectively to look at all of the commonalities of what they say, because they respond very generically, and if you break down the generic responses, you find the loopholes in what they're saying. They use potential a lot because it's a way of saying that, oh, there's a potential for harm. Well, is it harmful or not? And they sort of can sway the consumer to, go for what they're marketing when there's no real evidence for that.
Shocking, right? Not so shocking.
Every industry operates like this.
You're not wrong. Okay, so yeah, that was a great question. That's actually one of my questions that I asked too in the Catalina screening was what kind of backlash from the industry, and then that's when you guys also told me about some of the
Insurance mostly was
right. Because I mean, it's no industry wants you to go after them specifically, especially a multi-billion, as Barbara said, dollar industry. So. With that, any other questions? I know there were some people who, yes.
Have you been able to get this to any veterinarian students yet, who are the ones that a lot of times are, cited in funding through their education, so like Hills and a lot of those big companies, and that you see this food in their practice, which.
Okay, so to repeat the question, which is a really good question, I've never been asked that. Have we had this to veterinarian students yet? No, but there's different styles of veterinarians, which I did not know. There's holistic, which you met in the film, which are, they've had bad experiences, so they try to figure out why did they have a bad experience. And then there's what is termed as the traditional vet, which you went to vet school and, maybe you sell a specific brand and you haven't thought about nutrition. We try not to approach this in a way that is attacking that specific style of, practice, because maybe, I don't believe that the person means any harm, maybe they just don't know. But we haven't, it's just sort of like a grassroots release. So we've had people in the field say, we want to get this around to the students, we want to get this around to traditional veterinarians, just to start the conversation, but we haven't specifically targeted people to go after. We're just happy that anyone wants to watch it, I think. At this point, yes. I track people down on the sidewalk. Hi, you have a dog. Will you watch my movie?
All great documentary filmmakers do that. Would you, please, you have a dog. Yes, please, in the back.
So after doing all of your research and all of everything you guys discovered over the 6 years, if you guys presently have animals, what do you guys currently feed?
Ironically, I do not have animals.
I do, and my dog eats an organic raw diet. A couple different brands, but Darwin mostly at the moment. But
you actually went through a few phases of trying different things, and
different flavor that she may like more. And also when you travel, fresh raw meat is not always practical, so there's dry freeze one. I mean, there's plenty of options. But yeah, she's an organic raw diet. The difference is very, very significant over like a 90-day period in everything. I mean, the level of energy of the dog, the texture of the coat. I mean, it gets so much softer. It's just a much, much healthier dog. It becomes a dog that looks very fit, even if your dog doesn't move that much and lost a significant amount of weight, but not in starving. I mean, you go from some lethargic, chunky little thing prancing around your house to having a little animal with a goal that looks some athletic, lazy pooch, but in good shape. I mean, the Cavalier that you saw at the end, you don't think of Cavalier as a big hiking mountain dog. We did an 18-mile hike in the Sierra between 9 and 12,000 feet. The dog had no problem, was just running around. I mean, unbelievable energy, and nobody expects that. But yeah, so eating well helps. So there you go.
Right here, yes, ma'am. I have 2 questions. One, how often do you have to feed your dog? And then 2, how do we spread the word?
When you remember it, like when they bug you. No, I mean, she eats twice a day. And how do you spread the word? A good question. Well, please, everyone, social media, harass friend, call, knock on your neighbor's door, tell everybody. Films like this have zero money for marketing. I mean, the only way to spread the word and to let people know is friends, family, and people who have already seen it. The film comes out January 10th worldwide and many or most VOD platform, I think, and like you can Google that, it's and everything. Tell, share it. Everybody you know who has pets or who may think of having one like this, yeah, harass them with all social media platforms that you have access to. Thank you.
That's a good point. I definitely remember being like, oh God, I have about 10 people that I can send this to right now. So that's definitely relevant. Yes.
I would essentially just like to congratulate you on presenting a piece of artwork that raises consciousness to its highest level.
My chair
We all like to think that we all like to think that we're doing the best thing for ourselves and every member of our family. When it's woefully exposed that we're not doing that, it's kind of hard it's a hard pill to swallow at first. But I think it's very necessary. You do it in a way that's very inviting, and you know, when you clobber people over the head, they're just going to resist and they're going to move in the other direction. But you've done just the opposite, and I think you've done it very tastefully.
I think the biggest.
I hope you all heard this.
Oh, I know.
Very nice.
Did you hear? Shall we repeat? That was the biggest challenge, was the thread from basically all the natural things came about. So like the first things that I started to edit was like, oh, every animal has a species appropriate diet, because it was common sense to me, because my biggest question was, well, if corn and wheat is not what you're supposed to feed, what are you supposed to feed? So that scene came about, another scene came about. So I had all of these random scenes, and it was, the biggest challenge was sort of like, if, you know, we come into this vet's life and she believes in this, how do we do this without turning someone off in like 2 seconds? Like, oh, really? So I think we run in the snow and just feed your dog. But it was sort of like an inviting, you know, non-threatening way, because it's what you do every day. And the dogs have lived for decades on something that the industry says will potentially kill you.
Right. And how did you meet Barbara again? And just tell that story. And
Randomly,
also,
you found Dr. Royal in an audio file.
Doing literally, so the groomers mentioned the dog, the grade. I started looking into it when I got home. I was in between films at the time, so I had plenty of free time. And 3-4 days later, I mean, literally 14 hours a day, that's all I was doing, and I was obsessing with it. And among this, very, very early on, I found that this sound, it was this painfully long, like 2 hours, 2 hours maybe, lecture. Barbara Royal and Vince Field, the attorney, was also into it, and they were 2 of the 3 or 4 panel people discussing this. And we had no idea she was Oprah's vet. We didn't know, we really knew nothing. I mean, it was so early on. But we reached out to her, and we didn't actually get to meet her until at least a year and a half after that, when we took our first trip to Chicago. I mean, the very first interview was shot exactly 1 year after we decided to make a film. So there was 12 months of research before.
And then we were still confused, so it was like, we need to just shoot something and then just figure it out, because we can't research for 10 years.
Any of you thinking about doing a documentary? Talk to me on the way out. I'll talk you out of it. It's time consuming. No, it's great. Kidding.
Keep doing them, we need more truth.
we do. We need more beautiful.
We do.
But then when people do give me negative comments, why didn't you do this? I'm like, why don't you go try it, you know?
Go for it, yeah.
Well, that's actually good. What are some of the criticisms that you
That I
would
don't
We'll see if we don't
name
tell people,
brands
yeah.
that are good in the end, which I think is the silliest question you could ever ask. But I understand why, because you're conditioned, that's the issue, is you're conditioned to want one answer. And, you know, what I'm trying to stress is think about, you know, the one answer is species appropriate. And within that, you can feed a variety of different feeding styles. It's not one brand of food that's going to save the world. That's, you know, basically what the industry wants you to believe. So they're making billions.
There's those marketing myths that have been created in our lifetime, like never switch your dog's diet. When if he likes this, keep this forever. Don't feed him human food. Oh, it's like stupid. You want to eat chicken burritos for the next 30 years or 40 years? Like, I like chicken burritos, but you know, by day 3, it's like, okay. The variety is very important for them as much as it is for us, for every species. So those are common knowledge things that are pure marketing, and it works. I mean, so many people tell people, but I thought you should never switch your dog's diet. Why do you think that? Tell me.
God,
Yeah, so
I was
there's a
thinking,
seasonal element to it also, and then the environmental element to it as well.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
was thinking, do you remember whenever we went, the first thing we did was go to Atlanta? I thought about this the other day. We went to Atlanta not knowing anything, and there was a feed and poultry convention. And next thing you know, I don't know if we landed at like midnight, but the whole hotel was just like Vegas smoke. Like you open the door and it's like on fire. Because like, do you have a smoke-free room? They're like, yeah, half the hotel smoke-free. And you went from door to door to door to door. And it was one after the other. But then we get to the convention, and as far as your eye can see, it's just the National Rendering Association was there, and we're approaching, hi, we're, looking into the pet food industry, and, we've heard about you, and could you help us? But, like, we were genuinely naive, like, can you help us? And they're like, as we approached the booth, hi, how are you? We're making a pet food film. And it was one after the other, and the police were called to, like, kick us out, because they're like, you're filming a documentary, you're not supposed to be here. And it was like,
We had no
"Did you see
camera, we had
cameras?"
nothing. We just had no.
We're asking questions, and that was not, invited.
They called security and ultimately called the police to kick us out. Like,
I was
have a
going to
note
jail
now and
and
just
saying
mentioning. It was crazy. I was like, okay, well, this is what we're getting into. It's gonna get. And
So
this is.
did you go to jail or no?
Well,
It was
if
the
you
end
wouldn't
of
have
the
been there, I would
day,
have went to
the
prison.
thing-
Are you going to refund my ticket? And they're like, get out of here. And he's like, okay, stop, this isn't helping anything. Can't you understand how we're just asking questions?
You're
and
filming
You're not
stuff.
making yourself look too good if we can't even ask a question, and they let us go back. So he interviewed the FDA, he interviewed AFCO. I couldn't interview though, I was a little too.
Rebel.
Well, the Pet Food Institute, the lobbyist organization of this gazillion-dollar industry, it's amazing because around year 2.5 or something, we were into it, I started getting calls. So I'm like, hey, I heard about your film, it sounds very interesting, I'd like to know more about it. It's like, okay, good. And you are? Well, that's not very important, I heard about your film. It's
That's
like,
not very important. That's
and
not
I
answer.
realized
Who
how
are you?
creepy this sounds at my end, because that's why. So I'll hang up. And they called multiple times until finally identified themselves. They had heard from us from AFCO, because we had done the AFCO interview. He gave the number to the.
I called
They just
AFCO,
called blindly.
and AFCO calls the lobbyist organization. Isn't
Yeah.
that not interesting now that you think about it?
And a few months later, they actually, out of nowhere, agreed to give us an interview. And we were both like, I said, sure.
And
like,
some of the things that are not in the film that were asked were, please tell us about the chicken jerky issue that's going on. And as you can predict, the answer is, there's no chicken jerky issue. No dogs have died from this. And Mikhail's interviewing because I'm too testy sometimes to interview. And I'm like, stop the interview. I'm like, honestly, we're not trying to make you look bad, but we've spoken to many different people that
you're
have
making it
dogs
hard.
die from this. How can you sit there and say that? And it's like, I trust the FDA, and the FDA has not found anything, and that's, the answer. And it's like, okay, that's...
And the second half of the day, we were with the FDA, who was like, it is so...
We know there's a problem with chicken
Yeah.
jerky, but we can't
And
find
the
it.
guy's like, it's so, the regulation has changed, but like we, the FDA, government agency in charge of regulating this, have no recall power, have no authority. The only recourse we have when we know there's a huge issue, we call the news, we call the media, Dateline, 48 hours, 2020, to just shame the company. And it's like, as a federal agency, it's a little bit embarrassing. Since like about a year ago, 9 months ago, they were finally given recall power.
And even if you look at some of the latest recalls, the question is, has anything changed? My interest is sort of, why is the lobbying organization very trusting in the FDA? That's kind of interesting.
That's a
Anyways,
Well, I'm just curious if whatever happened with that woman's lawsuit.
which one?
The biggest lawsuit, or the biggest class action thing.
Yes.
That was settled in 2000.
I don't know the exact year, but it was settled. I don't know the exact amount off the top of my
I
head
can't
because there's
remember,
so many.
But we know that some people got like 12,
Yeah, people got like
checks settled.
$15 checks, $100 checks, and that was it. So that's why people, when I met the chicken jerky, the people affected by that, they're like, we don't want to sue because what's the point? We just want it off the shelf. All around the country, as I would meet people, like someone in Malibu, I'll go meet you in Malibu, and only I think 2 made the final cut, and the common issue was, please just recall it. but they would call the company and the company would be like, there's nothing wrong. And it's just this cycle of, well, now we're gonna have to band together on a Facebook page to try to get them to recall it from the shelf. That's all they're wanting, but the companies won't recall it. Must be making a lot of money.
We make a mention of this toward the end without getting into details, but the guy with an accent like mine in the film, the French economist, he's actually a doctor in economy from Princeton, and his thesis was about evaluating a companion animal. But it's interesting because right now, the way this lawsuit was calculated, how much did you pay for your dog? Okay, $200. The dog is 10 years old. Okay, so technically there's $30 worth of value of the dog left. You get to keep the collar on the leash. So people would literally get $12, $14 in settlement based on that. His thesis, and he's the first to write this, take in consideration, well, the safety that some dogs provide, the level of companionship. Older people don't need necessarily a companion to come spend time with them. The health benefits. Older people with dogs, that's well documented, have lower blood pressure, less cholesterol, less diabetes, because even if it's twice a day for 10 minutes walking, at 90 you normally sit around and do nothing. So there's tremendous benefits taken into consideration. I believe his value is somewhere between $1,500 to $4,500 depending on the dog, the way you have been maintaining it. That alone, over thousands, if not tens of thousands of dogs, if there is a class action lawsuit and this theory is accepted, the settlement would be closer to $1 billion, and as we mentioned, that will certainly motivate them to make better product. So many details you cannot put in, you cannot overwhelm people with too much information. It was fun.
And certainly the idea of depreciation of a pet's life is pretty sad.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. I'm not sure if I can ask one or two. One is I use freeze-dried food because for various reasons I just can't handle stomaching raw meat. But one brand that I've used has ground bone in it. It is stated on the package. But recently, I always crumble it up for my cats. But recently I find rather large pebbles of ground bone. And this seems like it would be a potentially dangerous thing. Even and this isn't a healthy brand, theoretically healthy brand of food. They make raw food also. That's disturbing to me because I feel like instead of feeling confident eating out this, of the two freeze-dried brands, one has the ground bone, so now I'm eliminating that one. And the other question I have pertains to one cat who's been diagnosed with kidney crystals. And out of fear of feeding him the wrong things, I'm still feeding him the vet-prescribed food, which really disturbs me because I don't really like that food. Is there any place or any where I can find out more about this that
Yeah,
lead
I
me to a
think
natural food?
that's the sad thing, is that it takes so much time to research, which you've probably already
Oh, I have.
done, and then it just gets more confusing, more confusing.
And you find
I would
conflicting
say that,
information as
just to
well.
address the bone thing really fast, it's cooked bone that are, I've asked both vets, and it's cooked bone that's the big issue.
Mm-hmm. It's a freeze-dried.
I can reach out to them to ask that specifically, because I don't,
Really pebbles. I have a little baggie full at home.
yeah. So that'll take a little bit more research, and then you're asking about, what was it?
Kidney crystals, and that cat's being fed pills, prescription diet, or CD.
We can't answer specific nutrition
Yeah, I
things
know.
because we're just sort of asking the question about species and
But
appropriate,
is there a
but.
source that I could go to?
Yeah, Dr. Becker has a ton of YouTube videos that are free. That's how I found her, is she had this video in the back of a pet store holding up packages, but she blurred everything out. And I'm like, I want to remake that for this film if you wouldn't mind. And so that's sort of how I found her, but she does it. She addresses everything.
Okay.
And the oral treatment.
And then the royal treatment as well, but she's in Chicago. But Dr. Becker does a lot of videos, and she has a lot of literature.
The Barbara Royal's book
Yeah.
explains a lot. It's great, but the easy and lazier way. Yeah, Karen Becker over her video. It's very, very, very informative. Yeah.
Could I ask one more question?
Yeah.
We travel a lot in Europe, and so we're using European foods too, so, would you happen to know how I can find natural food in France? Which is crazy,
Oh, I was
because
just
France
in
is
Paris, and I
food.
went into the store. I'm gonna make a video and put it online, but it was cereals, vegetable byproduct. Animal byproduct. It's Same thing.
They sell the exact same thing. I was just in France like a few months ago, but I had brought food with me. But my dog was traveling with me.
Yeah,
And yeah, I just brought it because
that's what we do.
I was bouncing around a lot, visiting family. I didn't have time to go sniff around to find the right product. And I've spent enough time researching pet food that I didn't want to do this on vacation. So, like,
But to add to that, for other people interested, that's what I'm hoping, like, the Facebook resources, you know, because I'm getting messages now from Israel and Barcelona and everywhere. And there's a common thread of, like, we have a community here that's been doing this. We need to show this film to sort of get the word out there more. So there's interest. It's just sort of like tapping into, you know, pipelines of what happened there, because it's still the same conglomerates worldwide. This isn't just.
for simplicity, just bring a few bag of dehydrated raw food and stuff. But in every big city, in Paris, wherever you go, if you go in some villages and stuff, you won't find. But in every big city, there's plenty of health food options. It's grown. I mean, the market has changed so much in the last, since we started this film. Just in the last 6-8 months, we are obviously more sensitive to it than others. All TV commercials are not only bragging about the protein content and the grain-free, but now they are bragging about animal protein, not just protein. But this is really just in the last few months. They know we have made this film. I don't know if any company will want to just piggyback on because of a movement like a whole food thing, because
They own all the other health.
they own ultimately a lot of those smaller divisions, are also owned by the big one, but they open smaller division, and then to dissociate from the image of.
As you can see from the Hills, or was it Hills? There's the Wall Street Journal where, you know, whenever the brand starts going down, then they create a new brand that's different, you know, to tag along with what people want.
But
This
many
is about market
food,
share.
many food that with the melamine, the factories are still there. They're just not called many food.
They changed their name.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy problem to solve. Anyway, oh.
I don't know if you found this in pet food or human food, but we recently lived in France for 3 years, and we found the human food on the shelf, something made by Nestle, same product sold in France and sold in the U.S. And the one in the U.S. had twice as much sugar in it. And
Really?
then, yeah,
Yeah.
like Oreos, you know, anything like that.
Anything to think of.
And the fruit juices would have half the sugar in them in France than they have in the
Yeah,
US.
we've been told like certain countries, like the United Kingdom, have different regulations. It's, you know.
But
I've
do you
been-
find that in pet food also in France then, or no?
I must say, because we did the film here, I didn't get to really study the packages there. I'm not entirely surprised. It is a country that does have slightly tighter regulation. Well, where lobby is less prominent, which ultimately affects regulation completely. I mean, it was amusing. There's a news clip in the film from Fox News, and the lady is like dancing. Well, I don't know, should we even consider what I hate to say it, but more regulations? Like she's talking about bestiality. It's like, oh my God! It's like, oh, God forbid you actually regulate something in the interest.
we need more regulations.
More regulations. Like, oh yeah, wow, what a concept. So, like, oh yes, why do something to protect the consumer? Well, oh shit, on the lobbyists for the other side. It's kind of absurd. So, luckily, a lot of other countries limit the level of lobbyism, which obviously helps us, the consumer. But yeah, that news clip always amused me. She's like, oh, I hate to say it, but yeah. Anyway. Yes. You? Anybody else? Oh no, I thought you had a question. You were waving. My bad.
We've got about 5 more
We love
minutes.
questions because we've spent years doing this, so we're like, will anybody show up?
I can just say something when you talk about Nestle. My brother used to work in Mexican Purina in their marketing division. He stopped working there because he started asking questions about, you know, certain products and how they were going to market and everything. So he was the head of marketing. And they wouldn't release any of the research. They say, oh, well, we just spent $1 billion in research for this. So they wouldn't say what was research. So he ended up leaving for that reason.
That shows integrity.
Well,
Yeah.
but it's,
That's
you know,
interesting.
But early on, we ended up at some random dinner in Venice, sitting next to a lady who used to work for Mars, a pet food division. Remember? and I forgot if she was in PR or in legal team, but she had quit.
She's in PR.
And so we were asking PR, and we were asking her, so is it really?
Are we crazy? And she goes, no,
And-
you're right on the
And she's
money.
like, well, a lot of confidentiality contracts, so why don't you ask me what I feed my dog? I said, well, do you feed her mouse? He's like, no, I don't. No.
Okay, and then it was like, are we crazy? No, you're not.
Yeah.
But then before we're over, I want to point out, Fernando, if you would like to
Oh, yeah.
stand up, if you like the music.
Fernando
Just
is
stand
a
around
round of applause.
Josh, stand up, and Ian. There we go. Especially if you like the way we approach the Hills booth. That was Ian. Go up to them. Keep it rolling. And then who else do we have here? We have the Healthy Spot, who is responsible for some pretty swank gift bags that you're getting, by the way. That's another criticism that people will get is that, or give, some people want to give is like, why do you have a brand or a store involved? And it's like, you need to go to some place where someone actually has the education that carries actually good brands that can point you into directions that are good for your budget, for your ethics. So, I'm really proud that you guys helped out. And you also sat down and I think we did a 4-hour interview in closet, ironically, but it didn't make the final film, but it was really good, and I always appreciate that because then I'm just grabbing people like, will you please meet with me, and everyone's like, no. Healthy Spot's like, yeah, sure, stuff on,
Yeah, greatly appreciated because any support for films like this that are normally invisible to anybody, please.
And
spread
still,
the
I
word.
have friends that are like, I have this worry, and I just go there. I don't, they'll take care of you. And they come back, I'm like, well, what happened? They're like, well, I had to worry about budget, and they just laid out the line and did a price by pound comparison, and we solved the issue. So
Now, where's the Healthy Spot located?
you have 9 locations now,
Wow.
Okay, tell us.
and you're in this longer than us.
Santa Monica, West Hollywood, Marina Del Rey, Costa Mesa, Long Beach, Studio City, the Pain.
So all over.
Bam.
HealthySpot.com.
Website, please. What is the website?
HealthySpot.com.
HealthySpot.com.
Thank you very much.
Downtown LA.
It might
Coming to.
be of interest
Ooh.
for some of the consumers with questions here
Yeah,
that
happy to help.
to link
It's
up.
on your bag.
Absolutely.
I think we got
Somebody's waving at us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We got